Hi, today I'll be presenting chapters 1 through 4 of Leading Change by John Kotter. These chapters explain why organizational change efforts fail and introduce the early foundations of successful transformation, including urgency and the guiding coalition. First, why transformation is necessary. Global competition is increasing, technology is changing rapidly. Market is shifting faster than ever, and incremental improvement is not enough. Kotter begins by explaining that we are in a period of constant and accelerating change. Globalization, technology, and competitive pressure force companies to adapt quickly. Organizations that rely only on small improvements instead of a true transformation risk becoming irrelevant because of that. Why change efforts fail. The majority of transformations fail not because the vision is wrong, but because of leadership mistakes. Kotter argues that most major change initiatives fail. However, failure is usually not caused by bad strategy. Instead, it happens because leaders make predictable mistakes during the transformation process. The 8 errors that cause failure. Kotter's 8 common errors are not establishing urgency, not creating a powerful coalition, lacking a vision, under-communicating the vision, not removing obstacles, not creating short-term wins, declaring victory too soon, and not anchoring change in culture. Kotter identifies 8 major errors that repeatedly cause change efforts to fail. These errors form the foundation of the book, and the rest of the chapters essentially explain how to avoid those mistakes. And we're going to get into the mistakes a little bit more. Errors 1 to 4 are the early stage failures. Error 1, no urgency. Error 2, weak guiding coalition. Error 3, no clear vision. Error 4, poor communication. The first 4 errors happen in the early stages of transformation. First, without urgency, people stay comfortable and can resist change. Second, without a strong coalition, no one has enough power to lead change effectively. Third, without a clear vision, employees may feel confused. And fourth, even if a vision exists, if it's not communicated constantly and clearly, people will not understand or support it. Errors 5 to 8, the execution failures. Error 5, obstacles block change. Error 6, no short-term wins. Error 7, declaring victory too early. And error 8, change not embedded in culture. The next 4 errors occur during execution. Leaders sometimes fail to remove structural or cultural obstacles. They forget to create short-term wins, which are critical for maintaining motivation for both the employer and the employees. They may declare victory too soon, which can lead to stopping the momentum. And finally, many changes fail because they're not anchored in the organization's culture. When leadership changes, the organization falls back into old habits. So it's important that it gets embedded straight away, because otherwise, if someone else takes over the leadership and it's not embedded, then they'll just go back to their old ways instead of continuing what the past leader did. And the main takeaway from chapter 1 is that transformation is a process, not an event. Leaders cannot skip steps. Each error represents a breakdown in the process. Successful change requires discipline and structured leadership. Now, what drives successful change? Leadership, not just management, clear direction, emotional commitment, and alignment of people. In chapter 2, Cotter explains what actually drives successful transformation. He argues that management alone is insufficient, planning and budgeting are not enough. Change requires leadership and the ability to inspire, motivate, and align people toward a shared future. Now for leadership versus management. Management controls complexity and maintains order, and leadership drives change, creates vision, and aligns and motivates people. Management basically helps the organization run smoothly, and leadership helps the organization move forward. Cotter stresses that transformation requires strong leadership at multiple levels, not just one CEO, but leadership throughout the organization. That may be a leader for each department, a leader for certain things. So it's not just a CEO, but several people providing leadership. Now, why urgency is step one. Without urgency, you get complacency, resistance, and slow progress. Cotter, he dedicates an entire chapter to urgency because it's really the foundation of change. If employees do not feel urgency, they will probably not make a sacrifice or take a risk. And comfort is basically the enemy of transformation. Now, for the sources of complacency, one would be past success, lack of visible crisis, low performance standards, or internal focus instead of external threats. Complacency often comes from past success. If a company has historically performed well, employees assume that it will just continue to do so. Cotterdall warns that organizations must look externally at competitors and market trends to avoid dangerous comfort. Now, why one leader is not enough? Transformation requires team effort, cross-functional leadership, and credibility and trust. And no single individual has enough authority, information, or influence to transform large organization alone. Cotter argues that successful change requires a guiding coalition, a group with enough people and credibility to lead the effort. Now for the characteristics of a strong coalition. There is position power, expertise, credibility, leadership skills, and trust and teamwork, which are all really important. The coalition must include individuals with authority, expertise, and strong leadership skills. Most importantly, they must trust each other. Internal conflict or ego battles can destroy the change effort. If there's no trust in the coalition, the whole coalition is not going to be able to even function because obviously for a coalition to work, you'll have to trust each other that you're making the right decisions and doing the things you're supposed to be doing. It's kind of similar to group work in university. A group's not gonna function properly if you don't really trust your group mates or if someone is not really doing their job or proper part of the team. Now, lastly, for the key takeaways, change fails due to predictable errors. Leaderships leadership drives transformation. So leadership is really one of the most important parts. Urgency is foundational. Like we said, without urgency, no one's going to be motivated to do anything and may just get too comfortable. And coalition builds momentum. In conclusion, Kotter shows that transformation fails due to predictable leadership mistakes. The 8 mistakes that we went over earlier are part of that. Successful change requires strong leadership, urgency, and a powerful guiding coalition. And basically, those first 4 chapters establish the foundation for the remaining steps in the change process that will come later in the book. Thank you so much for listening to my presentation.